Welcome to AP Biology. Today I want to talk to you about sexual selection, altruism, and artificial selection. So sexual selection is when one sex develops differences in order to attract mates. So you would think for the peacock that natural selection would select for a very dark colored bird with no tail feathers, because that's, you would think, the type of organism that would survive and reproduce, right? If you're brightly colored like this peacock is, it's going to be a lot easier for a predator to spot you. And if you have a long tail feathers, you're just easier to catch. You know, if you look at this peacock from the side, ooh, that's a really bad picture. But anyway, if it's running, its tail feathers kind of look like this, with these long, long tail feathers, right? Um, and it's just going to be a lot easier for a predator to catch it, right? Because it can just hop on the tail feathers instead of catching up to the peacock itself. And also they're heavy, so it just slows down the animal. So you would think that natural selection would select against this. But in fact, they exist. And so why do they exist? Apparently Darwin got a stomach ache every time he thought about them. So they exist because of sexual selection. The females, the peahens, are like, ooh, you're cute. So even if you can survive, your DNA doesn't get into the next generation unless you reproduce. And so the prettier they are, the more the peahens like them. And so the rationale here is probably that peacocks who are really well nourished, they're really healthy, they're able to get a lot of nutrients, they're able to actually put more energy into their display. They can have more of these eyes, or whatever you call these, and prettier tails, and maybe brighter blue feathers. So they get actually prettier. And so the peahens are actually choosing mates that are healthier. So that's kind of cool. All right. Altruism. Actually, one last thing with this, there's some evidence though that for some species, the females just pick them, and they're really not healthier. They just pick them because they like a certain trait. Anyway, altruism. Altruism is an organism's behavior that benefits other organisms, even at a cost to itself. And you might say, well, that doesn't sound very fit, right? So, for example, the bees here that don't have any babies of their own, they just help the queen have babies. So the queen mates with the males and produces babies, right? And these workers, these females, just help their sister, which is kind of crazy, right? They don't make their own babies. A similar thing happens with the prairie dogs. The prairie dogs have predators, maybe a hawk or something that eats them. Um, anyway, or eagle, maybe, I don't know, whatever eats them. And if they spot a predator, they're very watchful, and if one of them spots a predator, they'll bark. And when they bark, the other ones, or they make noise, the other ones will be alerted, and then they'll run underground and be safe. But whoever is doing the barking, whoever's making the noise, is more likely to get eaten. So that's at a cost to itself, right? And then there's the grooming, which is more like a switch back and forth thing. If you groom me, I'll groom you. Um, Anyway, the explanation for altruism is generally kin selection. So your kin are your relatives. This just means that even if it's a cost to you, if you can help your relatives um, have babies that can survive and reproduce, it's actually going to increase your DNA in the next generation, right? So it turns out that the the bees here are helping the queen to make her babies and to raise her babies, but those are all sisters, right? They're all related. And then with the prairie dogs, if they're with other prairie dogs that aren't related, they're actually less likely to bark. So they're really just helping their nephews and nieces and cousins and sisters and people related to them. There are some cases of altruism where it really doesn't look like there's any type of kin selection. It seems like maybe a mother duck is taking on some other random duck's babies because the other duck isn't a good mom, and they're not related. Um, and it might just be that natural selection has just favored the good mom trait so much that the good mom ducks are just really good at taking care of others' babies. All right. Finally, artificial selection. Artificial selection is when people choose the best traits rather than nature. So people choose which organisms will breed, as in which pea plants will be the parents of the next generation, or which cows to breed so that the milk production increases. So people select which cows are going to produce, are going to be the parents for the next generation. So the original cows on farms didn't make all that much extra milk, but by mating the ones who did make a lot of milk, the next generation has more babies that produce a lot of milk. So over a long period of time, farmers have been able to really change some species quite a bit, both plant and animal. Here's an example with corn. Here's modern corn, and it looked not a whole lot like modern corn originally, but if you keep mating the ones that have more kernels, eventually you get this really cool modern corn. Dogs are another great example. They originally started as wolves, right? And then you have these like really cute little dogs and these, bigger. I guess that one's pretty cute too. But you have all these different species. I'm not sorry, they're all the same species. You have all these different breeds, just based on what the breeders thought were good traits. All right.